bring in Roger Wallace, who covers the Texas Longhorns for us. And this has been a really interesting team to follow here, Roger, because going into the weekend, we knew that there were some growing frustrations from Coach Sean Miller. He voiced them in the press conference last week, and he said that, his guys used words like effort and toughness and almost questioned his guys. Then they go to Alabama, go to Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa, and pick up a big win. This Longhorns team has been an interesting enigma, so to speak. What'd you make of the win there on Saturday?
Yeah, and Sean Miller's kind of old school, and so he's not afraid to, say what maybe a lot of coaches think, but don't put it out there about his team. And talking about a lot of them just didn't have any interest in competing in that game against Tennessee, especially in the first half. So got their attention, went down to Alabama. They grinded out a win. I mean, that game took about 2 hours and 40 minutes. Seemed like there were about 20 reviews in the last 10 minutes, and you just kind of kept waiting for Alabama to get over the top. And they did take the lead late, but Texas fought back. And while the Longhorns missed 10 free throws, they hit them when they had to. And so, yeah, and I said going in, guys, that I thought they would have a tough time, but they'll probably win some games that they're not supposed to. And I'm sure you can put that win Saturday night in that category in Tuscaloosa. And now they come home and they take on undefeated Vanderbilt Wednesday. But yeah, I think Sean Miller was happy with the last 15 minutes of the Tennessee game, and clearly the entire Alabama game is the way he wants his guys to fight. And if they had lost, it would have been tough because, road wins in the conference are tough to come by. But I think he would have been a lot happier with the kind of the start to finish effort that they gave. Just so happens they made enough plays to get a huge win.
Roger, we talked with Noah on Friday about how Jordan Pope, it seems like he's up and he's down. The highs are high, but the valleys are low. And he talked about how, he's one of those true scorers where, if he's performing, it's usually, putting up points and that he doesn't really contribute anything with rebounds, assists, and steals. What did you make of his performance there in Tuscaloosa, and can he build off of it moving forward?
Yes, and I think that's because he's not a traditional point guard as far as affecting the game without scoring. Noah's right. I mean, he's got to score, and he's capable. And the other end of that spectrum, he's a point guard that can carry a team offensively, which you don't always see. And obviously, he had a big game, 28 points, hit big shots. You can tell when he's in rhythm. I mean, when he's in rhythm, those shots, those threes look effortless. He can then, get to the rim, which he did a little bit, and he's got some nice moves inside. But yeah, he's kind of up and down, and that's what it's tough for Sean Miller, an old point guard who wasn't a scorer, probably to come to terms with, is that his point guard's a big scorer. And Dalen Swain was kind of a no-show in the game against Tennessee. Had some foul problems, struggled, so that was a big jump from the 34 he had against Mississippi State. But I think that's very accurate assessment of Jordan Pope. He's kind of an all or nothing. I think Sean Miller would be happy if he was a 12 to 14 point guy, 4 to 5, 6 assists, and be able to play 30 minutes running the offense. But he's more of a scoring point guard than a facilitating point guard.
Absolutely. You also got some great contributions from both Dalen Swain and Trayvon Mark, scoring 18 points apiece. 3 guys off the bench scored. Is this the style of game that you think that Sean Miller wants to live in? And if there are tweaks, what would they be as far as being able to get wins and playing at their best?
Well, they got a little bit more out of Lassina Traore, not necessarily scoring, but rebounding, defense, being a presence inside. And, he said some of the many things he said the last 2 games was we're not getting anything out of that 4 position, or as we know it, the power forward position. They got a little bit more out of it there. So that's one thing. They just got to be better inside. They've got to not make this such a guards game, and then Vukatitis, see how many times he gets to the line. But yeah, he wants to play up and down. He wants to, get a shot off within 10, 12 seconds of the shot clock. They can shoot the 3. They're capable of shooting the 3, but they have to be better defensively, and they have to take care of the basketball better. I mean, doesn't everybody, right? If that's a formula for everyone, is if you're a good defensive team and you don't turn it over, you're probably a pretty good team. But it's been a little bit extreme, and then the fouling issue is also been an issue, and that usually kind of goes hand in hand with being a good defensive team. You're not out of position as much, and therefore you don't foul as much. But I mean, Saturday was a great game for Texas because they weathered the storm. They did all the little things when they absolutely had to. Mark made a great play, a missed three at one end that would have tied it. He gets a loose ball. That's a hustle play, and he turns it into points, and all of a sudden you've got a 2-possession lead. That one really helped kind of put it away. And then Alabama kept cutting it to 1 possessions, and Pope hit free throws down the stretch. I don't think you can ask for much more on the road against a good team than what they got. And we'll see if they can back it up. Now, if they back it up and beat Vanderbilt on Wednesday, all of a sudden that resume starts to get a little bit better here with not only their 11th win, but their second impressive conference win.
Yeah, and let's talk about that road ahead because, when you take a look at it, Kentucky isn't really what we thought they were heading into the year. I know they had a nice bounce-back win, and you could say the same about Auburn, but you see these other 3 games, especially against Vanderbilt and Georgia, are all at home. And, what would you like to see, speaking hypothetically here, record-wise over these next 5 games, what would you like to see out of Texas to, maybe get them back into that consideration?
Well, you're asking to either sweep 3 good teams. I know A&M doesn't have a number behind them, but, we know they're pretty good.
Yeah.
That means if you're going to go 4-1, you got to sweep those 3 home games, presumably, and get one of the 2 road wins. So I think realistically, if they go 3-2, then that's 4-5 in conference play, and I think 9 gets you in, maybe even 8 like last year. But I think if they go 3-2 in this stretch, it means they get a couple of more wins over ranked opponents. That would be 4. If you get 2, NC State was ranked. Alabama was ranked. I know everybody loves to kind of play out the schedule like we're doing. I think Sean Miller would, if you got some truth serum in him and said, hey, you can go 3-2 over the next 5, probably takes that because that means there's some good wins along the way.
Absolutely. Let's flip to the women's side. This is a really interesting basketball team because coming into the season, high hopes overall. Then they just ran through the non-conference, including a big win over South Carolina. They scored 66 points in that game. And then this past weekend, they scored 65, a season low in their first loss of the year to LSU. Obviously, every team, Texas is every team's Super Bowl, for lack of a better term. What did you make of their performance offensively and just not being able to get that win? Do you think it's just an aberration going on the road, playing against a very tough team, or are there concerns moving forward with the squad?
I don't think there are concerns yet, their body of work. And the thing I like to say to people about this Texas team is they're almost certain to host first 2 rounds in Austin, right? And they're almost certain to advance to Fort Worth for the regional. So, you can look at a road loss to LSU. We don't know what will happen Thursday. It's going to be really tough to beat South Carolina in Columbia after they beat them almost at the buzzer in Las Vegas. But I think regardless, unless they fall apart or suffer some catastrophic injuries, I think they're going to be just fine no matter what happens going forward because of the way the tournament sets up. There was some concerns because the offense wasn't very good for 3 quarters. They scored 26 of their 65 in the 4th quarter, and that's where we saw Madison Booker kind of say, okay, I'm going to see if I can just take over the game and maybe will this team. And they got within a possession a couple of times, but she got in early foul trouble, came out with under 2 minutes to go in the 2nd quarter, didn't play. LSU hits a bucket at the end of the half to make it a 5-point game after a steal. So, little things like that. Rory Harmon got benched. She was 1 for 7, a couple of turnovers, and she wasn't on the floor the last part of the ball game where normally, she would be that floor general for the Longhorns. So LSU was fired up to play them. They got rid of that 2-game losing streak, beat Georgia, and still, I sound like a homer, and still, it was a 1-possession game late in the ball game. So, Texas didn't play well, and they were still right in it. Not to say that that means anything other than, they still lost the ball game. But I'm not shocked that they lost at LSU, and I wouldn't be shocked if they lose to South Carolina, and I wouldn't be worried if both of those things happen when you're looking at the big picture. Vic Schaefer's track record is too consistent what he does with teams down the stretch. Everybody's going to have the bumps in the road. LSU gets beat at home at the buzzer by Kentucky, and then they back it up with another loss. So, this is just, and I know where we're leading with this with Schaefer, but this is a tough conference. You're gonna lose some ball games in this conference.
Absolutely. We'll get your thoughts here on Vic Schaefer in a second, but you teed this up perfectly because they go from LSU to face Carolina. Once again, this time it will count in the SEC standings. But first, let's hear from Coach Vic Schaefer, not mincing his words this weekend.
They obviously have a vendetta against Texas because not only have we started in the league and I get to play South Carolina twice last year, this year I get LSU twice, but I have to go of 16 games. There's 16 games this year. And I have to play South Carolina on the road this year as well as LSU. I get them back-to-back in the same week. Now make that make sense. So the league is hard enough as it is. But then to bless me and my group with that, like it really has a stench to it.
Vendetta, stench.
Two keywords.
Exactly. He's sitting with the LSU backdrop behind him. He's talking about his schedule where it's LSU and South Carolina. We talked about this during the break. Optically, it really just doesn't look great, his words coming after that loss. But what do you make of this veteran coach making a very pointed statement about the SEC?
It's kind of who he is. So that didn't surprise me. And then, you get on social media and sometimes you're so close to things you don't see it from the high above angle. And he kind of took a beating on social media for those comments, but he says that kind of stuff all the time. And it is odd that you would get those. And I know if you start looking at team schedules now, you could say, oh, well, they have a back-to-back at Kentucky and Vanderbilt, 5-7. But you don't know they're going to be 5-7. Like, you have a pretty good idea that LSU and South Carolina are going to be highly regarded. But, I don't know what goes into the scheduling, if they throw it into a computer or they really look at it for TV and those Sunday matchups and midweek games on national TV. But it's the first thing everyone noticed if they're follow this program when the schedule comes out. LSU and South Carolina on the road within 5 days. Yeah, that's pretty tough. And you get a home and home with LSU after last year getting the home and home with South Carolina. Flip side is those are great wins if you can get them, and they get LSU back home. South Carolina, I think they're going to play them every year, my guess, because the conference needs that game because it's such an attractive matchup. So, unless there's something in the SEC scheduling where they say there are going to be points where you don't play the same team every year consistently, then I don't see why they wouldn't want these two powerhouse programs to play each other. But yeah, after a loss, you can understand why people would jump on it and run with it. That it sounds like some complaining from a guy that had the number 2 team in the nation. Now he has the number 4 team in the nation with one of the best players. But he's always going to speak his mind, and he's got a lot of history in the SEC, and he's built up a lot of credit. So I guess it's kind of like Kim Mulkey says a lot of things, and people just kind of roll their eyes and say, okay, that's Kim Mulkey. Well, this is kind of Vic Schaefer, always trying to protect the program, and as he says, protect his kids. But I don't put much stock in it, either from what he said or where Texas is with a loss to LSU yesterday.